ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 3 of the series. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. As the second event just ended, the students were given a 30-minute break before advancing to the final event. The 16 students who passed the second event headed to the waiting room while preparing themselves. Others wanted to get to know who their opponent was, and others were taking a break. Izuku sits in his waiting room, doing reparation and adjusting his gauntlet. His leg booster is broken on one of them because of Katsumi during the first event. He was down one item, but he was still able to manage with what he got. He came prepared for this day to come to fruition and wouldn't let one mishap happen. Not with what he had in store for the end. A knock came from his room as he saw Kendo and the rest of his team in cavalry race entering the room. "Hey, thought we might find you here." Hatsum came allowing themselves to enter. "Yeah, just trying to see if I could fix this." Izuku holds his right leg booster that was damaged by Katsumi to see if he could fix it. "How bad is it?" Kendo asked. Izuku placed the booster in his table looking defeated. "It needs to be fully rebuilt." "So you're down a gear?" Tetsu asked, thinking that he might be at a disadvantage here. "I still had other tricks up to my sleeve, Tetsu. Izuku replied, "But I'm down one booster." "I just saw your match lineup. You're going up against Katsumi." "I see," Izuku said, sitting back down. Knowing that with them walking in, a long conversation was inevitable. "I guess I got my work cut out for. What's his deal anyway? Why does the guy hate you so much?" The big sister class B asked. "I'm in from the looks of it. Almost the whole class they went after you right from the start. Is that how you see it?" Izuku went on to ask. "From the looks of it," Tetsu rubbed the back of his head. "I meant when that blonde guy and Todoroki called you Deku. I figured you must have been known to each other, right?" Izuku looked toward them as he knew that this conversation was inevitable and averted his gaze toward their eyes, knowing that he owed them an explanation for unintentionally putting them in crossfire. "To be honest, I don't really know where to begin. I guess I'll just start by telling you guys that I've known them for a while." "How long is a while?" Hatsum inquired. "Ever since we were kids. We even went to school together until a couple of months ago." "I see. I wasn't always a Midoriya to begin with. My last name used to be Yagi." "Izuku Yagi." "Yagi? As in Izumi Yagi?" Kendo sees the resemblance of their last name. "Yeah, we were step-siblings. But things got complicated at some point, and I decided to change my name to Midoriya from my birth father," Izuku said, deciding to skip the complicated stuff of him stabbing Katsuki and getting kicked out of the house. "At one point we were all friends, the whole class say when we were little, but that pretty much changed when they all developed their quirk. Especially Bakugo. That loud blonde from class A?" Kendo cuts off, and Izuku nods. Tetsu was next to speak up. "Time out. I'm sorry for interrupting Midoriya, but I failed to see the relevance. As you know, I was born quirkless, but my drive to become a hero annoyed him. I always represented rock bottom in his eyes. As far down as he can sink, he always thought it would be impossible to sink lower than me. He was hoping to move up in life, graduate UA, and finally leave me in the dust." Izuku started to explain. "I'm sure that I don't need to tell any of you this, but quirkless people are looked down upon by society, especially in younger generations." None of them bothered giving a verbal answer. It was the sad reality of living in a superhuman society. Sure, quirkless people made up 20% of the world population, but that number was closer to 3% in Japan. Even then, over 95% of that consisted of the elderly. For most of my life, I was bullied because I didn't have a quirk. Almost every single day at school, I would get attacked or beaten up. Izuku continued. "The teachers didn't do anything to stop this?" Hatsum questioned him. Surely the adults had to have known about this. "It's like I said, people don't have a very high opinion of those born without a quirk that included the school faculty. More often than not, they would just turn a blind eye to it, or just write it off completely. Every time I went to tell them about what was happening, they thought I was just doing it to get some attention or was the one who instigated it. So eventually I just stopped trying. Let me guess, Bakugu was one of the kids who were bullying you. And that nickname Deku, he's the one who comes up with it. Kendo had a feeling that she knew the answer already, but still wanted the confirmation. Yeah, the teachers didn't want him to have any negative remarks that would have hindered him from getting into a top hero school. I'm pretty sure they saw his potential and realized that they could somehow benefit from him making it as a pro. I learned at a pretty early age that as long as you have a strong quirk, people will make every excuse in the book to justify your behavior. At some point, I started hating people who were lucky enough to have been born with power like that. If we're being honest, I still kind of do. Our school pretty much praised him and told him that he'd be a great hero one day. And because of that, they let him get away with whatever he did. That's nonsense. Hatsum scoffed, folding her arms with indignation. It's the truth. That's why I decided to enter the sports festival. To prove that you don't need to have a quirk to be a hero. That anyone can be a hero. Well, that's admirable. Tetsu praised his effort and determination. Seriously, dude, that's some dream you had there. You think so? Yeah, you get pushed down and you still fight back and stand here with your own feet. To me, that's awesome. And who cares what everyone thinks? I know that if you've ever needed anything, we'll be more than happy to help you. Kendo smiles over to his face, the whole class. Even I will be here for you. Izuku blushed a bit seeing her standing close to him before collected himself. Sure, thanks guys. Yeah, me too. Who cares what everyone thinks? Hatsum added. Izuku stared at their group, probably feeling for the first time ever that he might have someone who always be there for him. Someone who he could trust and count on. Thanks, guys, I appreciate it. Izuku said sincerely before getting up from his seat and slapping their backs and shoulders in consideration. On that note, he left the room, slamming the door behind him as he began to make his way to the empty hallway where he would need to clear his head. On his way to the stadium, however, he ran face-to-face once more into Katsuki. The ashen blonde glared at him in murderous, almost looking downright pissed. He also noticed that there was no camera anywhere in the place, making it somehow convenient for him to come here. You finally decided to fight back. Katsuki replied, looking all smug. I've been waiting. Haven't I been doing that all the time? Izuku replied coldly. I hope you don't expect me to comment on that, so you can record on your hidden tape recorder. Izuku's eyes trailed to Katsuki's hand still in his pocket. I wasn't born yesterday. Punching icy hot in the face. Even I didn't see that coming. You got some guts when you went missing for 10 months or something. Katsuki taunts him. Guess 10 years of me beating you isn't enough, huh? Would you like to know? Izuku replied, not breaking his composure. You know, your past is a bigger mystery than Jimmy Hoffa. I tried every avenue, legal and otherwise, but there ain't no paper trail in the last 10 months of your name coming up anywhere. Not at any online forum, or even a ticket receipt with your name on it. Your old man is a social worker for some minor company, married to your mom, and 2 years later you were born, and then just poof disappeared right when you were 4 years old when you got diagnosed. And next thing I learned, you adopting your father's name and learning support when you never show a single talent in school for 10 years. Now all of a sudden you picked up skills that I don't think you have. Izuku looked around the hallway, glancing left and right. I guess there's no recorder running, after all. No, Deku. Katsuki walks towards Izuku's direction, their face close to inches. Unlike you, I do everything out in the open. I'm not a coward like you who hides in a shadow. Izuku, for the first time, smirks in front of Katsuki's face before whispering calmly. In that case, Bakugu, let me put this in the open for you. No matter what you try, no matter when, no matter how hard you work, I'll always be a step ahead of you for one simple reason. And what's that? He smirks before he gets closer and leans next to him, finishing his word. I own you. The next thing Katsuki knew, Izuku headbutted him right in the face very hard. F. Katsuki groaned, holding onto his head as Izuku made his leave, walking at a fast pace toward the crowded stadium filled with many spectators. Izuku stands in front of the railing stadium filled with second-year students as he pretends to cheer on Shinso and Izumi's match like nothing has happened. Katsuki runs after him out in rage. He grabs Izuku from the back and throws him against a railing. Katsuki repeatedly punches Izuku, but he doesn't defend himself while calling for help to stop Katsuki until he is pulled away by the second-year students and a couple of security. The audience in the booth is in shock and shifts their attention to the quarrel in the audience booth instead. Hey, get off me. Get off from me. I'm not done with him just yet. Katsuki continued to resist while trying to throw himself at Deku for headbutting him. Hey, that's enough. That's enough, young man. The security team scolded him with a stern voice. Get him off of me. Get off me. Izuku whimpers in pain while on the ground. What happened? One of the second-year students asked Izuku while helping him get up. I don't know. I accidentally bumped into him while I was on my way to the stadium. I said I was sorry, and the next thing I know, he came behind me and beat the hell out of me. Security, I need a teacher on site at my location. I have one of the contestants for the tournament beating a fellow contestant for what appears to be a minor squabble. Copy. Snipe is on its way. You're coming with me, young man. You're going to explain to the teacher what you just did. The security team dragged Katsuki out of the audience site. Me? DKU, fake it. He's the one who taunts me. I just teach the scrubs a lesson. Don't make this harder for you, young man. Stop struggling and walk with me. DKU, you son of a. When I get out from here, I'm going to beat you so bad you'll be eating with straws for the rest of your life. Do you hear me? You're dead when I saw you in the stadium. You hear me? You're dead. Izuku then gets help getting up from the ground, with two seniors helping him while watching Katsuki get dragged out for everyone to see his violent outburst and erratic behavior in the public eye. He thinks he just saw Ms. Joke and MT Lady on the seats looking at his action. One of the seniors came to help him. Hey, what the hell happened? I don't know. He jumped me, Izuku replied, feigning ignorance. That guy's always had it out for me. Katsumi standing in front of the monitor looking at the matchup for today's event, staring at the name that comes with the monitor while looking for her own. All 16 names on the list already have their placement on the monitor screen as she smirks in satisfaction. Izumi Yagi versus Hitoshi Shinso. Shoto Todoroki versus Hantashiro. Izuku Midoriya versus Katsumi Bakugo. Mei Hatsum versus Ida Tenya. Shoka Todoroki versus Momo Yaoyorozu. Katsuki Bakugo versus Denki Kaminari. Kirishima Ijiru versus Tetsu. Itsuka Kendo versus Uraraka Ochako. She looked at the pairing of the teams and found it to be just how she wanted. She going up against Deku. He knew that Mr. Yagi had set up the match, to favoring more towards their side to be facing up against Deku and pit him in an almost impossible situation. This ought to teach him that quirkless didn't have a place in heroism. Only those who are born with quirks can accomplish such a feat and become a hero. She just looked at the screen that Izumi just won her side of the match and began heading toward the stadium to see Shoto's match, trying to pass some time before going to deal with Deku for her match. She walked over to the hallway while wandering aimlessly, not seeming to know where's the direction, and missed out on the match. She tried to go back when suddenly she found herself in some waiting room for the participant. On the door plaque, she found Deku's name on it, realizing that she was in his waiting room, and took a moment before entering. That idiot, he must be inside, right? I'm going to knock some sense into him for the last time. Hey, DKU. She slammed the door wide open, shouting for his name, only to find that it was empty with no one inside. Tisich, Katsumi clicked her tongue. That Deku must have bailed out or something. She looked around the workshop table and found tools all lying around the table and one red toolbox on it. Judging from its place, she figured that it must have been Deku's. She figured that maybe she should ransack the place or take the toolbox from it so that he couldn't work on his invention. It seems childish, but it's something like a payback to him or something for what they did. She took the toolbox, not noticing that it wasn't locked and all the tools were dropping onto the floor and scattered. She grumbled and picked the tools one by one before she found something intriguing in it. It was something big, almost like a pair of scissors, but more for construction or industry work. It was a cutting plier, one that you always find in the hardware store, not something that's small or easy to carry. She had her suspicion when Ida told them about Principal Daisuke's car accident. Even though his son told them that he was caught in an accident, she still thinks that something must have been going on, and the first thing she suspected was that something must happen to the car. Wait, Isn't Principal Daisuke's got into an accident recently? What if? What if Deku did something to the car? What if? What if he cuts the wire brake? She holds the plier in her hand, wondering if this is the same tool that's used by him. This could be the evidence that could sink Deku. I can't let anyone know just yet. I need to find evidence that it's the same tool that cuts the brake. This could be the same plier that cuts Principal Daisuke's brake cable. She took the plier and put it in her pocket, placed all the tools back into the toolbox, and put it back to the toolbox where it was before walking out from the waiting room like she had never been there in the first place. The next match was Shoto versus Sero, as Present Mike had announced to the speaker. Before the match started, however, while Shoto was heading to the stadium, he still thought of the fact from the second event where he almost lost to someone like Deku in the first place. The weak crybaby Deku who they all viewed for 10 years as someone inferior to him every day. The same Deku he always beat up on a daily basis, trying to prove that he was indeed as useless as everyone says so. But now, Deku is not the same crybaby they met 10 months ago before entering UA. He's grown some backbone for some reason, picked up skills he didn't know he had before, and even almost drove him to lose at the time. Shoto clenched his fist when he walked by the hallway. Rage boiled up in his body as he could easily imagine himself losing and saw his cold stare looking down at him almost in a mocking tone. Back out in the stadium, both of them stood at the stadium as midnight started the second battle. I don't feel like winning, Sero said lazily. Suddenly, Tapes shot out his elbows as he wrapped up Shoto and sent him flying towards the edge. But I don't feel like losing either. Suddenly, Shoto's eyes ignited with murderous intent, as in a fraction of a second, a giant glacier formed over the stadium, completely encasing Sero and a quarter of the UA stadium in an ice glacier. The whole crowd was rendered speechless, and even Izuku had to admit the size of the ice was impressive. That's a little overkill, no? Sero asked while freezing. Sero, can you move? Midnight asked, also half-frozen. Hell, no. Well, that settles it. Shoto Todoroki moves on to the next match. Before leaving, Shoto looked at Izuku with a murderous glare, as Izuku glared back from his spot. Just wait your turn, Shoto. Once we meet at the arena, I'll put you out so bad that you'll be crying begging me to stop. Izuku thought. Katsuki Bikugu sits at the student booth while grumbling with the rest of the class waiting for the third match to take place, where his sister will be going up against Deku. He can't wait to see the look of his defeated face when going up against her. He was kind of mad that he didn't get the chance to put Deku in his place, but knowing that his sister did it for him is good enough for him. But a part of him wanted to be the one who did the payback after what happened in the stadium where he got reprimanded by Aizawa-sensei for his outburst. Flashback start. Katsuki is just being brought by the security team from the stadium and met with Aizawa-sensei, who's come to meet with his student and told the team that he'll take him away from their hand. Being brought into the boys' locker room, Aizawa locked the door before facing Katsuki with that same look in his eyes. Mind telling me why I heard that you tried to manhandle Midoriya at the spectator seat? DKU started. Who? I told you it was Deku's fault. Bikugu, is that an insult I heard? Who cares what I call DKU? He's worthless. He's useless. He's beneath me. Aizawa flashed his quirk right at Katsuki, putting a stop to his explosive outburst. If I heard you called Midoriya that name one more time, I'll disqualify you from the sports festival right here and now. And the only thing that stands is a 5-minute paperwork and an official UA stamp. Katsuki grits his teeth and eventually stops running his mouth with insults before calming himself, but still radiates with anger. We just got a report from the security team that's on the scene that said, you came running to Midoriya and beat him up for bumping into your shoulder. That's a lie. I didn't do anything. Are you saying that Midoriya lies? What for then? Yeah, he did. He faked it to sabotage me. Then mind explain to me why you were there in the first place? Weren't you supposed to be in your waiting room on the west side of the stadium, and we find you on the east side instead? Katsuki then holds his silence as nothing comes up from his mouth. He can't exactly tell that he came to confront Deku and left wondering why he did that in the first place, which can raise some questions. I assumed that you were just lazily coming out from your waiting room and getting some fresh air while wandering around aimlessly like a fart in a fan factory," Aizawa asked, trying to rile him out. But Katsuki didn't give any response at all before Aizawa exhaled, "You'll get one chance. One more incident, and you'll be disqualified from the sports festival. I don't care if All Might himself recommended you. I will announce it on the speaker myself." Seeing his silence confirmed Aizawa's suspicion that Katsuki was hiding something. However, if he were to press him any further, Aizawa would get nowhere. Deciding to shelve this topic for now, the underground hero says in a threatening tone, "Head to the student's booth, and if I see you leave except for when your name gets called, I'll shout out from the speaker straight away." After having said that, Aizawa unlocks the door, allowing Katsuki to run back to class with his tail between his legs. When the latter screamed at him, the former began to suspect something. This type of shouting was unusual since the explosive blonde could take criticism, or at the very least would pretend to take the criticism. Something was pulling away at the underground hero, and he would do everything he could to solve it, one way or another. And the first clue that he heard was Deku. He would have to do some investigating and pull in some favors if he wanted to get to the bottom of this. But deciding to shelve it for now, Aizawa decided to head back to the commentary booth. Flashback end. Katsuki's mind is still fresh over what happened just moments ago because Deku tried to sabotage him just then, and the worst part of it was he got caught in it, hook, line, and sink. He can't believe that Deku tricks him like that. But that's to be expected from a spineless coward such as him to be able to play the victim and pull something like that instead of confronting him face to face like a man. But right now, all he wanted was just to sit back and relax while watching his sister. Beat the hell out of Deku. Time for you to learn, Deku, that your place is at the bottom of my feet. Izuku stared at the monitor of the next match that was about to take place. He calmed himself down while closing his eyes, getting ready for his first fight against his opponent. He already double-checked his gear, tightened the screws, and did routine checks on everything, and nothing is going to stop him from advancing further in this competition. His hand is shaking, but not out of fear, but with excitement. For the first time in 10 years, he's going to get payback for everything they did to him all those years ago. Katsumi, Shoto, Katsuki. All of them will be dragged down to the abyss by his hand, and he'll make sure that they stay in the abyss as well. Up next, we have the explosive grill of Class 1A Katsumi Bakugo, and from the support department, the ace of Class H, Izuku Midoriya. Present mic blared over the intercom. Izuku opened his eyes before wearing the repulsor blaster on his hands along with his visor as he began to walk out and leave the room. He walked out towards the hallway. With each step, he took echoes at the empty tunnel. While Izuku was heading to the stadium, he met face-to-face with Momo, who seemed to be waiting at the end of the tunnel. Izuku's face turned to scowl, clenched his fist, seeing her standing in the way, thinking that she might be trying to convince him to drop at the last second, considering he'd be facing up against Katsumi. "What do you want? Trying one last time to convince me to drop out?" Izuku asked out straight to the point, not wanting to waste his time. However, Momo shakes her head in denial. "No, I won't." "Then what? You came to sabotage me or something?" he asked, looking at her hostile. "No, I just wanted to say good luck, that's all." Izuku's eyes widened for a bit, wondering what's the sudden change of attitude, thinking that she might be trying to convince him to quit just like how the rest of Izumi's friend has been doing all this time. "What's the sudden change of attitude?" Izuku asked. "I was wrong. Izumi and I were wrong right from the beginning," she said, causing Izuku to tense, but his eyes were covered by the shadow of the tunnel so that she couldn't see him fully. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, mind you. I don't deserve it. I just want to try and repair the damage I caused. I know what we did to you isn't easy, if even possible, to fix. But just like you never stopped trying to achieve your dream, I won't stop trying to repair our friendship that I destroyed when I was 4 years old," Momo said. Izuku didn't move from his spot before he walked past her and walked to the stage, leaving her in there all by herself before she joined to see Izuku's match. At the stadium, Izuku enters as the crowd cheers at the arrival of the two of them entering the arena. Katsumi grits her teeth in rage, itching to pop her explosion and just go with it to release it, and Izuku, who already clenches his fist ready for the fight. Last chance Deku Drop out, or I'll put you down myself, Katsumi said for the last time, while internally begging that he'll reject her offer to give her a reason to put him down. You're itching to do it, don't you? Izuku asked coldly, putting people down to their level to position yourself to be higher. Don't worry, I won't go for something permanent. Just bad enough that you were out of the competition. Izuku replies while smirking at her. Too bad there's no car engine or heavy object around here. Then it will be a fight worth watching. Katsumi boils in anger talking about the studio incident before he calls Midnight out. Start the fight already. I'm raring to go. Same here, Izuku replied. Midnight looked around before continuing the match. Both competitors ready. Izuku shook his head, leaning forward into a three-point stance. He took a deep breath, eyes hardening. Begin. Once the bell started, Katsumi wasted no time in making the first move. Using her left hand, she created an explosion that thrust her directly toward Deku. As she readied her right, she knew the match was over. All she needed was one good hit, and she would blast the green-haired nerd back to whatever hole he had decided to crawl out from. Die, she shouted, delivering the final blow. A thick cloud of smoke followed the loud bang. Holy cow! Awase cursed out before getting slapped by Shiozaki in the back of her head. Don't bring God into this. Shiozaki scolded him. But seriously, is she for real? Firing explosion right at the bat like that. Hananuki commented. Midoriya. Kendo looked at the stage with a concerned look. You haven't changed a bit, Katsumi. Izuku's voice rings as the last of the smoke clears, shocking everyone in the stadium with the sight before them. Not only was the green-haired boy still conscious, but he appeared to be perfectly fine. After getting over their initial shock, the crowd finally noticed the position that the two combatants were in. Izuku was holding Katsumi's arm by the wrist, with her palm facing upward and away from his face. Let go of me, Deku. Katsumi grunted, trying to release the grip, when suddenly she felt the grip getting stronger than before, feeling like it was crushing her slowly. What's with the grip? It's like strong. I said let go, you Deku. The explosion quirk user shouted as she shot off another blast with her left hand, only for it to be slapped away before making contact. Izuku then counters by aiming his gauntlet over to her stomach and firing off a blast that knocks her out and pushes her to the back of the arena, but not powerful enough that she gets knocked out from the ring. Katsumi may be the first one who throws the punch, but Midoriya is the one who delivered the first damage. Katsumi quickly recovers from the blast and looks up only to see a barrage of blasts headed in her direction, causing her to evade from left and right. The blast hits through the debris on the floor, creating chunks of rocks, and Katsumi sees it. She took the blast head-on and realized how powerful that blast was, but she refused to bend her knee for the likes of Deku. She refused to give up and gave him the satisfaction of looking down on her. You Deku, Katsumi cursed. Immediately, Izuku begins charging Katsumi, holding his left arm out and firing a repulsor blast at Katsumi. Katsumi tries to sidestep, but he predicts the movement, firing another blast in quick succession. This time, the blast hits Katsumi directly in the arm, singeing her sleeve and causing her to stumble back. Before she can regain her footing, Izuku fires another blast at her foot, catching her while she is leaning back and causing her to fall over. Katsumi rolls up to her feet, her mind beginning to fight back, and tries to recover from her stumbling. She barely has time to think before a metallic fist connects with her nose, sending her reeling back. Holding up his left arm again, he fires blast after blast at Katsumi, who desperately tries to get away before avoiding the barrage of blasts coming her way. What is happening? Why can't I react like usual? Katsumi shakes her head desperately. I need to disable that gauntlet, and I need to do it fast. Katsumi looked up trying to counter back, but she didn't have time to avoid a knee kick from Izuku, who propelled himself up with his one-leg booster that wasn't damaged by Katsumi during the race. Oh, another hit has landed to Katsumi Bakugo. Looks like Izuku Midoriya didn't hold any punch against his opponent. Katsumi joins her palms together using her new move against him, Stun Grenade. She joins her palm and releases a blinding light. But the footfalls continue, and she watches as the shadow of Deku bathes her in darkness, not disturbed by the flashbang. But Izuku's visor shielded him from the light and propelled himself using his repulsor and leg booster to her direction and threw a punch right at her face. Another hit. Izuku Midoriya is dominating in this fight, ladies and gentlemen. At the student's booth, Katsuki got up from his seat and yelled to the arena, "Get up, SIS. Beat H-I'd him right now, why don't you? Stop screwing around." She crawled out from the ground and tried to gain some distance, running to the corner of the arena, but was stopped by another blast from his blaster out directly in front of her, blocking her path. She tried to run the other way, but a powerful beam scorching the concrete directly in front of her thwarted that plan as well. Again and again, she tried to escape, only to be prevented by a beam shooting out and stopping her, corralling her into a narrow funnel, where her only exit was blocked by a towering figure of her opponent. She had begun to hyperventilate, her mind having simply stalled any higher thought than the base instinct of survival. The thunderous footfalls of her opponent echo in her mind, beating along with the drums of war. "What's the matter?" Her opponent calls her out, still approaching slowly, but surely. "I thought you were going to show me my place." Or, "Is the great Katsumi Bakugan nothing but all talk?" Hearing those words, Katsumi grits her teeth, blinded by her rage, propels herself into his direction, and throws a right hook packed with explosion towards his way, but ultimately fails as Izuku blasts her before she can make her way into his direction. "Arg!" she screamed before stumbling back. Same old Bakuga trick. Not an ounce of creativity with that quirk anywhere. Only good for destroying things. Izuku mocked her, finding her nothing but a one-trick pony, while firing one blaster right after another. She was standing in front of the arena, taking one blast after another, as the blast from Izuku's repulsor blaster burned a part of her clothes and singed her hair also, and there was nothing she could do to avoid the blast that's hitting to her way. The blast continued to hit her mercilessly, but Izuku held the power a bit, just enough to stumble her and knock her from each step she took. Worst case, the blast would only bruise her skin. The barrage then came to a halt as everyone in the stadium watched the one-sided match that took place. Normally, everyone would assume that a hero student who survived a villain attack would surely have some form of combat experience, since they were dealing with an actual villain. But now, right in front of their eyes, the said student is unable to fight back and had her getting beat up by a student with zero combat experience, but also from the support course. Katsuki, who sat at the student booth, watched as his sister got humiliated like that, unable to fight back against quirkless Deku while her sound of screaming and groaning hit their eardrum, reaching into their booth. Not only he, but the 8 participants of the match, excluding Momo and Izumi, watched in horror as Katsumi, one of the powerhouses in Class A and sister of Katsuki Bakugo, faced a losing battle in the match against the quirkless Deku. Katsumi stood still at the stage with a weak knee, feeling the stings from the blast, and looked up to see Deku standing about 6 feet away from her with a cold expression. "Do you know why you and I got paired up for this tournament?" Izuku asked plainly towards Katsumi. Katsumi pants her breath, looking all exhausted, not replying to his question. "It wasn't because I wanted to beat you one-on-one, or to prove that me being quirkless isn't worthless at all, or even to send a message to the rest of your class of their impending doom. It's because you were nothing but a trial test for me." Katsumi's eyes widen, not seeming to understand what it means. Her match served to be a test. If I can beat you with this strategy, your brother would just be another case of repeated history. After all, you're both nothing but copycat. Her eyes widen in shock to be called a repeated history. She thought that she was the one who set the trap for him, but instead, it was the other way around. She grits her teeth in anger, almost like she could break them from the anger and humiliation she feels right now. Her plan was at the sports festival, where she wanted to battle a strong opponent and become the winner, and she wanted to show Deku his place at the bottom. All of it was for naught, and she was instead the inferior one. DKU. What followed after the Ashen Blonde's attempt was so quick that they needed to replay it on the stadium monitor a few times for everyone to see what happened. Almost in the blink of an eye, Izuku propelled himself using his leg booster. In one swift motion, he landed a knee kick to her face with a blinding speed. The impact of the punch was so forceful that the blonde-haired girl was unconscious before she even hit the ground. The crowd immediately went silent once again as they tried to piece together what they had just witnessed. Katsumi Bakugo is unable to continue. The winner of the third match is Izuku Midoriya. Midnight announced after taking a brief second herself to recover. As he looked down at his fallen opponent, he could practically feel the anger that was radiating from a student booth that belonged to his opponent's brother. Just sleep well, Katsumi. By the time you wake up, you'll regret that you ever wake up and wish to just sleep for the rest of your life. The rest of class stared at the stadium as the medical bot helped carry Katsumi to the infirmary after she was left unconscious by Izuku after their match. They quickly headed to the infirmary to check up on Katsumi's condition, including Katsuki as he was headed to the infirmary, running towards it. They quickly opened the door to see Katsumi lying on the bed, remaining unconscious from the knockout blow made by Izuku with her nose bloodied. Not only that, but her gym clothes also have holes from the blaster made by Izuku and bruises around it. Is she okay? Katsuki asked, looking at his sister's condition. She's fine, Sonny, but she needs rest and is still unconscious. Recovery girl answered. How bad is she? Izumi asked. Just a bruises and a knocked-out cold. Nothing too serious. Recovery girl grabbed a blanket and covered her body. There's nothing you could do for now. Just focus on your match. If I remember, your match is about to start too, right, Sonny? She looked in Ida's direction as the bespectacled boy remembered that his match was about to start. So Shu, the girl needs some rest. She pushed the rest of the class away from Katsumi's room, and Ida said his farewell first, as he also needed to prepare for his match. They all gathered in the hallway after taking a walk to keep themselves away from the infirmary, away from Recovery Girl's earshot. Katsuki slammed his fist against the wall in anger. When I get my hands on that Deku, he's dead. Dead. Calm down, bro. Kirishima tried to grab a hold of him, with the help of Sato, Shoji, and Kaminari. Don't tell me to calm down. Shitty hair. Deka needs to pay for what he did to my sister. Calm down, Bakugo. Momo argued, looking at him who was snarling in front of her. You expect that he just take the beating without any kind of fight back whatsoever. It's called a competition for a reason. DKU doesn't need to fight back. All he needs is just to accept his fate and be done with it. Are your ego that fragile that you never even seen someone close to you lose? Were you so hell-bent to see him losing and be humiliated? Is that it? That waste of space shouldn't be at UA at all. I would have ignored him if he had just stayed in his lane with the other extras. But I'm not letting him get ideas above his station, to let him think he's better than me. I don't care why you or any of the other extras think he's got anything worth listening to. I'm putting a stop to this right now. But Momo stepped in front of Katsuki, blocking his way as the rest of the class watched the confrontation. You've disgraced our class enough with how you've treated Izuku, but I'm drawing the line here. I'm not going to let you hurt anyone, especially not Izuku. Katsuki popped a few explosions in his hands, ready to let himself loose in the hallway. Last warning, Ponytail. Get out of my way, Katsuki angrily said. Go back to the booth, Bakugo, Momo answered. Katsuki gritted his teeth, glad to finally have an excuse to show this stuck-up extra her place, and swung his hand forward to create an explosion big enough to blast Ponytail into the wall. Before Katsuki could blast Momo, though, there was a loud hiss that sounded like a fire extinguisher, and he was enveloped in a cloud of white foam from Momo's open palm. You beach. Bakugo tried to blast at her with his quirk, only for it to sputter and fail. You want to continue to humiliate yourself, fine. But I'll tell you this, Bakugo. You won't get in Izuku's way just because you don't have the stomach to see the word lose floating on top of your head. Momo then said her final word before making his way out of the hallway, with Izumi following her before frowning and looking in Katsuki's direction. You. Katsuki had never been insulted, been disrespected like that before. He was going to tear her apart himself. But before he could do that, Kirishima came to stop him, this time with the help of the rest of the class, as they weren't going to think that Katsuki was going to attack one of their classmates. Izuku was sitting in his waiting room while fixing and cleaning his gear and looking at the scoreboard of the match itself on how the match was going right now. He looked at the screen monitor in his room and saw the match between Ida and Hatsum was already over, resulting in Ida's victory since he knew that Hatsum was only using the festival to promote her invention to attract investors and support Items Company. It was safe to say Ida felt humiliated. The match between Momo and Shoka also ended, resulting in Shoka's victory since he knew that Momo would be bound to lose with the difference in quirk strength alone. The next match is going to be Katsuki versus Kaminari as he puts his gauntlet back in his locker and locks it before heading to the spectator booth wanting to see how it's going to go down. He could tell that Katsuki's anger must be boiling right now after watching him beat his sister and put her in an unconscious state, and he was just waiting for it to explode at the right time. All he needs to do is just sit idly while watching him go down to the abyss as he planned for him. As he began to clean his invention, he heard the locker room door open. As Izuku turned, he noticed the figure of Shoto Todoroki standing at the entrance. Finally, the heterochromatic boy said, "I was looking for you." Izuku sighed, standing up from his crouch, and turning to the other boy. "What? Still feeling bitter about your loss?" Shoto stared at Izuku with a cold expression, but opened his mouth. "You think people would just accept you become a hero after winning this tournament? All they see is nothing but a next-in-line quirkless kid who's about to meet his end." Izuku rolled his eyes. "If you're trying to intimidate me, you should probably know by now that isn't going to work. Waste of time and breath, if you ask me. You may be able to weasel your way during the cavalry race while hiding behind others who are greater and better than you. But when you step into this match, it's an individual for themselves. They'll see you as nothing but a defect of you are. Is there a point to all this, or did you come down here just to whine about the cavalry race?" Izuku crossed his arms, glaring at the heterochromatic boy. Shoto shook his head and continued, "My point is that you won't win no matter what tricks you played. I'm going to crush you when I'm done with the match. I'll be waiting when we fight with each other in the next match. You sound confident that you could win against Izumi. I will be the victor of this tournament, Deku. That's a promise. Is that what this is all about? You going hellbent to win the tournament and prove your manhood to everyone else?" Izuku taunts him while openly mocking him. "Are you going to brag to mommy after you won the tournament with half of your strength?" Shoto corralled Izuku on the wall, pressing the boy to the back of the locker room. "Take that back, Deku." Izuku, however, didn't seem fazed by his threat or the fact that Shoto slammed him at his locker door with Shoto's right side started to act up, emitting freeze air. "What? You can openly mock my father for 10 years without a single care, and yet when the role has been reversed, you can't take an insult about your parents for less than 10 seconds? What an ignorant idiot child you are." Izuku shoved past Shoto and released himself from his grip, but the dual-haired boy still glared a dagger right at Izuku, wanting to make him pay for insulting his mother. "You came to my room, throwing insults and degrading words right in my face, and you expect me to just sit here and take it? Well, here's what I think of you." Izuku spat onto the ground at Shoto's feet. The dual-haired boy starts to get riled up and emits the ice part of his quirk, wanting to freeze his entire body in cold for good. "Go ahead. You know you want to." Izuku whispered right into his ear, "You can explain everything in the teacher booth about why you were caught assaulting a fellow student outside of the tournament arena. I'm sure they would love to hear everything. How you and your daddy were nothing but a reflection." Shoto felt his rage bubbling just under his skin, wanting to be unleashed on the quirkless boy in front of him. At first, he wasn't fazed by his threat, but now he's openly mocking him by spitting at his feet. And the next thing he did, he brought up his parent and mocked them. How dare he? How dare he? Izuku, however, ignored his silent anger and continued to work on his support item, not looking at Shoto. "If you're done venting your words, you know where the door is. And turn off your quirk, why don't you? I'm getting chilled here." Just like that, Shoto looked at how Deku didn't even seem to get scared by this threat. Back in Aldera, the coward would shake in fear just by looking at Deku's eyes. But now the quirkless runts didn't even scare, let alone dare to talk back. And there's nothing he could do about it. Shoto stomped out of the locker room, eyes zeroing in on the light of the arena at the mouth of the tunnel, and shook his head. Izuku hears the door closing and continues cleaning his invention and doing a final check on his equipment while ignoring their argument just now. Nothing but a bark dog? He finished with his equipment and decided to walk into the hallway. Izuku walks into the spectator booth as he watches the match currently taking place between the two students of Class A, with Katsuki dominating the fight. Murmurs and whispers began to be heard as they saw Katsuki crush Kaminari like that. That boy, isn't he the winner of the first and second event? Yeah, his name is Katsuki Bakugo if I remember. He's got a powerful quirk for such a young age, but seems like he doesn't know how to hold back. Yeah, and the way he used those explosions, it seems erratic and uncontrollable. Izuku stood in silence, listening to the mixture of praise and concern from Katsuki match before someone called up to him from the student booth above him. Midoriya. Izuku looked up to see Kendo up there along with what appeared to be her class altogether. Kendo, I didn't see you up there. Izuku waved his hand at her. You want to sit with us together? Kendo offered. Sure. He nodded, taking the offer. He took his way to their booth, and Kendo introduced him to the class, except for Setsuna and Tetsu, who already knew him. I'm sure you already know, but let me introduce you all. This is Izuku Midoriya from Class H. Hey, nice to meet you, Midoriya. The class greets him. Likewise. Izuku greeted them back before taking his seat next to Tetsu, with Kendo's seat below him with Setsuna and Yui. Kaminari is out of bounds. Bakugo is the winner. Midnight was announced from below the stage. They all saw that Kaminari was already out of bounds and looking all battered from the match as the crowd cheered onto their match. Man, that Bakugo dude is freaking crazy if you ask me. Kamakiri snarled, looking at him. His savageness is simply unacceptable. Shiozaki looked in shame. Do you think anyone can beat him? Owaze asked the question that's on everyone's mind. It's hard to say. If we're talking about raw power alone, I'd say Todoroki is the only one who can compete with him, or maybe Yagi also. Setsuna looked deep in thought, looking at the match lineup itself. Let's not count Midoriya over here too. Tetsu wrapped his arm around Izuku's neck. He took down Bakugo's sister, you know. Yeah, he's a beast of his own too, you know. Hananuki joked. I'm pretty sure people won't call me a beast, Izuku said. But you took down Katsumi all on your own. That's pure skill if you ask me. Kendo replied, turning her head to her rear. Soon, the intercom informs of the next match between Tetsu and Kirishima. The steel quirk user looks pumped up and ready to fight, but deep down inside, he feels like his match is like battling himself because of his opponent's similarity to him. Guess I'm up. Any advice that you can give me? Tetsu went on to ask. Hit harder? Izuku suggested. The rest of them chuckles, and even Tetsu follows before heading out as well. Meanwhile, in the teacher's waiting room, Izumi is having an argument with her own father as he just found out about Izumi not wanting to help disqualify her brother from the match, and even goes far to assist him instead. Izumi, what do you mean you won't help? Toshinori asked, deflated from his all-might form. I meant what I said. I won't help my friends in sabotaging Izuku's chances here. Izumi replied firmly. Izumi, do you realize just how grave your decision is? Your brother is an accomplice of All for One. Having him climb into the hero course would simply be unacceptable. Who knows what he could if he ever entered the course in the first place? What evidence? You already asked Detective Tsukachi for a private interview, right? And you found none. He's just trying to achieve his dream, that's all. But that's simply unacceptable. A quirkless person can't be a hero. It just can't. Toshinori rejects the idea itself. Is that why you fixed the match for Izuku to fight with Katsumi first? Izumi accused her father. Toshinori turns his head over to her. How did you know about that? I didn't for sure until just now. Izumi's eyes shifted to disappointment, hoping that she was wrong. I find it weird that I was paired up with Shinso, and I won easily. And somehow, Izuku's match is drowning with strong people on his side. Ida, Katsumi, Shoto, and me. You fixed the match, didn't you? We're not talking about this. Toshinori ends the conversation. If you won't help, then just stay out of your friend's way. Did the teacher also in on this? Izumi asked, wondering if even the whole teacher faculty was trying to eliminate her brother's chance. But Toshinori didn't give his answer and just walked away from the room while hiding his scowl from his daughter's face. Soon Izumi followed too and left the room, not wanting to be there any longer as well and trying to get some fresh air. Izumi had made it to the entrance point to the arena. She started to wander the halls, hoping she didn't leave the stadium grounds. That is until she heard a quiet sniffle echo down the hall. Looking to her right, around the corner was Momo herself, sitting against the wall of a deserted hallway, a hand over her mouth to stifle her sobs, tears flowing down her face, was Momo Yaoyorozu. "Hey Momo, you're okay?" Izumi walks in slowly to comfort her. Mind if I sit down? Just for a minute?" She listened as he barely managed to get that sentence out. "I'm fine. I'm just frustrated, that's all." Momo replied, wiping the tears in her face. "I know what you feel. Shoka is strong after all, and having you lose like that, anyone would be sad. No, it's just, I know that I don't stand a chance with Shoka, but I wanted to win because I wanted to help Izuku by some little. I figured if I could win against Shoka, he had a better chance to win in the next match." Izumi looked over at her knowing that she understood what she meant. Even Momo seemed to know that Izuku's match seemed to be unbalanced heavily with Class, a heavy hitter. It's obvious that the placement had been set against him. It's just I don't understand why they were so against him to be a hero. It's like they hate to see him succeed. Everyone seems to be always in his way. Momo lashed out, feeling frustrated with her loss and Izuku's situation. "I feel you, but he's trying hard to make his dream. I guess if there's one thing we know, is that he's resilient in his dream, even if it meant ruining and exposing what we did to him. Yeah, he already did that with Katsuki before the festival. I saw the article. I read it too, but I still wonder till today, what evidence did he have?" Izumi looks in wonder. "I don't care at this point since I made my peace when I ruined his entire childhood. But I just want to know. It's like a big mystery to me somehow." Momo wiped the tears off from her eyes while sobbing before she collected herself. "I'm not sure about it, but I think I have some idea about it." Izumi asked, not seeming to follow about what. Izuku's trump card. The match between Kirishima and Tetsu came to a conclusion after 15 minutes of gruesome match because of the similarity of their quirk nature, but in the end, Kirishima got the better hand of him and won the match. Now it's Kendo's turn, and she's going up against Uraraka. Truth be told, Izuku finds her match at a bit disadvantage. From what he can tell, both of them were a close quarter type, except Kendo being only a close quarter, but her opponent is a mid type. With her quirk, she could easily touch Kendo to let herself float and toss her away from the ring, so she needed to find a way to counter that. He offered some advice, but she rejected it, saying that she wanted a fair fight, and he respected that. All right, everyone. Let's begin with today's match. From Class 1B, she's a martial artist in karate and the big sister of Class 1B. "Give it up for Itsuka Kendo," Present Mike said, and the crowd was cheering at her entry. And from Class 1A, her smile and bubbly attitude sure warmed the heart of the audience. "Let's welcome Ochako Uraraka," Present Mike announces, and the crowd goes wild as she waves her hand to the crowd. Both of them enter the arena. They stare at each other, waiting for midnight to start the match. Kendo looked towards her and remembered from what Midoriya told her that she was also one of the students who bullied Izuka back when he was still in school. She looked at how smug she acted while pretending all bubbly is simply pissed her off. Uraraka stared in Kendo's direction before speaking. "Deca friends, aren't you?" "His name is Midoriya," Kendo replied shortly. "Whatever. He's going to lose anyway. Ida and Shoto are going to knock some sense to him when they are done." "You mean like the one I'm going to do to you right now?" Uraraka's face turns into an annoyance, seeing how she's not seeing clearly. "Now, I want a nice clean fight from both of you. Is that understand?" Midnight said to both of them. Uraraka was nodding at her, and Kendo was nodding at her as well. Seeing both of them already giving their confirmation, Midnight began to start the match. "Now begin." Suddenly, Uraraka makes a mad dash toward Kendo, trying to touch her to win her match, when unexpectedly Kendo enlarges her fist and throws a punch at her to push her out of the ring. She managed to dodge the punch at the very last seconds before her face was met with her fist. Kendo's fist instead slammed over to the floor, making the tile crack. Displaying the strength level of that punch, as Uraraka saw, and was glad that it didn't hit her square off. Uraraka tried to get close to her so she could end this fight as quickly as possible and beat Deku's friend while she at it. But Kendo proved to be a difficult opponent that the brunette wouldn't want to acknowledge. Since Kendo is a martial artist, her movement is much more refined and precise, unlike Uraraka's method of trying to land a touch on her with 5 fingers. "Hold still, why don't you?" Uraraka yelled out. Kendo, who seems to understand that confronting in a close fight will result in her losing the match, decided to try a different angle to win instead. She enlarged both her hands and waved her hand, acting like a fan, and blew a powerful gust of wind against Uraraka's direction. The wind didn't just blow wind, but also dust from when Kendo punched the ground, resulting in hitting against Uraraka. Arg! Uraraka felt her eyes begin to soar. Kendo took the chance to dash forward and deliver a strong gut punch to Uraraka's abdomen, causing the brunette to hold her vomit and get herself knocked back, falling onto her back. Uraraka tries to get up, but before she can, she hears Midnight call out. Uraraka is out of bounds. Kendo is the winner. Uraraka looks down, seeing the painted border of the arena a few inches away from her feet, and her vision begins to swim, exhaustion and the damage from the fight catching up with her. She feels her vision fade and her body slacken. The last thing she heard before blacked out was the sound of cheering on the stadium, followed by the crowd chanting Kendo's name over to the victory. Katsuki watched from the booth as he saw Man Hands get the best out of Pink Cheeks and win. He grits his teeth as he sees that Man Hands moving up to the top 8 just like him. From what he learns, Deku is friends with Man Hands along with the extras from those B classes, and she's the only one that's left from the tournament since Shitty Hair beat his stupid counterpart. He was going to go up against Icy Hot's sister, and Shitty Hair will face Man Hands. And he was hoping that Shitty Hair would lose the match so that he could deal with Deku's woman himself. He wanted to mess with me? I'll return the favor when I ruined his beach. The next match of the day is about to start as Izumi is standing in the hallway preparing for her match against Shoto. She could hear from the stadium the sound of the crowd radiating with excitement. As Izumi walked on stage, she could feel the intensity of the stage. Todoroki stood before her, with his eyes poised on beating her. Both these competitors have been at the top of the festival so far. The announcer yelled, but there's only one room for these greats in the ring. First up, we had the Queen of Destroyer herself. She breaks through all of the contestants' paths with her superpower quirk. Give it up for Izumi Yagi. Present Mike said, and the crowd went wild with that statement. From Class 1A, his personality is as cold as his gaze, yet his smile is capable of warming the heart of the ladies. Give it up for Shoto Todoroki. Present Mike yelled out, and the ladies in the crowd began to chant his name. Both of them now enter the arena as they stare down at each other. One is brimming with excitement, while the other is filled with seriousness as both of them want to win this match so badly. Now, is everyone ready? Midnight asked both of them, and they just nodded to her question. Let the battle of the quarterfinals begin. Immediately, Shoto fired a massive glacier at Izumi, who at the same time fired a massive whirlwind to counter. The two attacks clashed, sending ice shards flying in all sorts of directions. The blast sent both competitors flying back. While Izumi was able to catch himself by quickly creating an air cushion behind her, Shoto made an ice wall behind him as well, both saving each other from getting knocked out of the ring. The Ice Boy immediately launched a second glacier at Izumi, not giving her a chance to breathe. The ice covered her from head to toe, encasing her in a glacier noticeably smaller than the one he used against Zero. Izumi's trapped in ice. Is Shoto going to win this and make 2-win streak? Present Mike yelled. Suddenly, the ice started to crack as Izumi busted out of her icy prison, surrounded by a telekinesis aura around her, before firing telekinesis blast at Shoto, who made another ice wall, blocking the blast. She break out, folks. She managed to get herself out of there. He then placed his hand on the broken-down ice wall, causing it to expand and grow spikes, shooting straight at Izumi, who took a deep breath and fired back an equally large wind blast. The two attacks collided, creating another huge explosion. Shoto uses his quirk to create an ice barrage, but Izumi generates a shockwave made from punching the air, using one for all, thus breaking apart the ice. The shockwave from both of the attacks was very powerful, and it nearly blew both of them to the back. Izumi used her telekinesis to propel herself so that she didn't fall, and Shoto, who got blasted with the shockwave, immediately created an ice shield to cover his back so that he wouldn't get blown to the back and lose because of a ring out. Seeing how powerful Izumi has gotten, Shoto keeps continuing his assault by using his ice to barrage her this time. But Izumi switches back from using one for all to her telekinesis again and creates a psychic barrier to stop the ice. Kirishima was in awe, witnessing the battle unfolding before them. I knew they were strong, but this is on a whole other level. No kidding, both Shoto and Izumi are seemingly even, Ochako said after recovering from her loss. Even? Don't make me laugh. Katsuki said with a salty attitude. Can't you see? All Izumi is doing is blasting the ice that's coming her way, either switching to her telekinesis to one for all. Meanwhile, look at Icy Hot. His right side is covered in ice. He may not look the part, but he's at his limit. Izumi simply had better stamina, since she had two quirks. Back at the stadium, Izumi could see that his opponent was getting more and more sluggish. The quirk was finally taking its toll on him. Knowing this, he finally spoke up. You're shivering, aren't you, Shoto? Izumi asked. What are you talking about? Shoto asked in confusion. But as much as he tried to feign it, he really was taken by surprise at his sudden question. Your quirk has its limits, doesn't it? We both might be equal in terms of strength, but I have one for all, and ever since then my telekinesis has been enhanced by it. And besides, I'm not letting you move to the next round, so you could have your way with Izuku. Seeing that Shoto had begun to get exhausted and a little frustrated that his attack had no effect, Izumi chose to use this chance to attack. She lifted a couple of the ice boulders that scattered around the arena and threw them at him. But Shoto uses his ice to force the two of their attack to collide in the middle, immediately before it could hurt him. Suddenly Shoto launches an ice attack on her, not giving her a chance to breathe or gain any momentum. The ice trapped her from head to toe, thus trapping her there. The ice had encapsulated her entire body covered in ice. Izumi Yagi has got herself trapped again, folks. Is this the end of her? Can she break out just like before? Present Mike announces. Silence rang throughout the stadium once more. Class 1, it was looking in horror, and Shoto decided to break the silence. He turned to Midnight, asking her to call off the match, knowing that he already won. Just as she was about to declare the winner, the ice that trapped her began to crack, and all eyes turned back to the glacier that trapped Izumi. Each second the sound of the ice cracking began to hear, and everyone watched the crack that formed on the ice itself. When suddenly, Izumi managed to break through the ice and came out from there. I don't believe it, folks. Izumi Yagi has come out from the ice that's trapped her. I have to say, this battle has turned into the next level, folks. Present Mike yelled, and the entire arena was filled with loud cheers. Soon she launches herself at him with the help of her telekinesis, trying to punch him using one for all. But Shoto was faster as he created an ice wall between them and blocked her assault. But this time around, due to the weak state of the stadium, some of the debris from the ground was getting blown at him too, breaking through his barrier and hitting him directly on the forehead. The ice wall eventually broke, and Shoto was sent flying back, nearly falling out of bounds. Izumi thought that switching from long-distance fight to a close distance would be an advantage for her, but Shoto was more talented than she thought, and his quirk was almost as versatile as hers. Wow, both of them are going at each other, Kirishima said in awe. Yeah, none of them giving each other a break, he said while watching the scene in front of her. I don't know. I think Todoroki is going to clinch this. Mina watched from her seat. We'll hold on. Don't count out Izumi just yet. She's very strong, you know. Mineta claimed. You only said that because you made a bet with Kaminari, right? So you accused him, and the midget could only look away. Both of them were standing there exhausted as they were staring at each other. They kept staring down since they had overused their quirk, but Izumi still had more fight in her. Give it up, Shoto. I'm not letting you move up. Izumi said while looking all exhausted herself. Stop being persistent, Izumi. He needs to learn that he has no place in this place. Shoto replied in a cold tone that matched his breath. And you get to be the judge of that? Izumi asked in exasperation. He needs to go through all of you to prove himself? Is that it? No, just as long as I can be the one who shows it to him, Shoto replied. You're all insane. You, Katsuki, the class, my dad, all of you are crazy. You can't just put yourself to the front like some kind of gatekeeper every time you try to take a step in his life. We're done talking, Izumi. You're just confused, that's all. You'll see it anyway once we're done with him. Shoto replied, ending their conversation. He began to power up both of his quirks. As well, suddenly both flames and ice began to erupt from his body. Both his ice and flame began to power up at the same time, creating a surge of power in the middle of the arena. Izumi also powered up her right arm with a combination of One for All and her telekinesis into one concentrated point to give her the maximum damage that she needed to win matches. What this? It looks like both Izumi Yagi and Shoto Todoroki have decided to settle this once and for all. I gotta tell you, folks, this has been a heated battle for today's match. Present Mike comments. Seeing this, both Midnight and Cementos began to worry about the outcome of this match. With that much power on both of them, they could seriously hurt each other very badly, or worse, to the audience as well. This is bad. At this point, both of them are done for. Midnight said as she began to rip her clothes off. Cementos, you need to stop this. I'm on it. Cementos, running towards the arena. He began to form a huge wall between the two of them while they began to clash with each other. As they both clashed, a huge explosion began to form in the arena, almost as if someone just detonated a landmine in UA Stadium. The crowd began to blow away, while some of the pro hero that were watching couldn't hold their feet for long as the gust of the wind was too strong. Class 1A couldn't believe their eyes as two powerhouses from their class began to duke it out with each other. Even Katsuki, who watched this, were completely speechless. As Midnight and Cementos slowly stood up while looking at the arena that was being destroyed in half, she tried to figure out what just happened to both of them after their showdown. Then she saw Todoroki lying down on his back, barely opening his eyes, while Izumi was sent fly away to the back of the arena. Izumi Yagi is out of bounds. The winner is Shoto Todoroki, Midnight announced. And suddenly the crowd goes wild at the spectacular fight that just happened in their eyes. It was amazing to see the two future heroes showing off that kind of power. It's breathtaking, as they just finished watching the contest between two promising heroes. The crowd was cheering at their name, congratulating both of them for the amazing fight they just put up, while the pro was looking amused and couldn't wait to invite them to their agency for their internship, with their eyes already itching to recruit them, especially Endeavor-san. But Izumi didn't share the same enthusiasm as the rest of the crowd, while sobbing quietly, knowing that now her brother is going to go up against Shoto if he wins his match against Ida. She thought she could do it, winning the match and maybe even helping him in some way by taking out the strongest competitor and forfeiting herself in the end, but it was all for naught, as she couldn't do it if she lost. Shoto then walked towards her direction with her back touched against the wall before speaking to her. You put up a good fight, Izumi, but I can't say the same for your brother in the next match. In the end, Izumi could only lower her head with tears dropping from her eyes. At the Class B student booth, Izuku watched the match between Izumi and Shoto, resulting in Shoto's coming out victorious, much to his surprise, to be honest. He thought that Izumi would be the winner with all the swagger he always saw, but it turns out Shoto had the slightest edge in the fight, and that slightest gave Shoto his victory. But a part of him was glad that Shoto won instead, because he could have his match with him. Tenya Ida and Izuku Midoriya, please make your way to the stage. The speaker in the waiting room announced. The green-haired teen stood up and prepared himself for the match. Kendo stood and follow-on and sent him good luck. So you're going up against Ida. Good luck, Midoriya. Do you think you can win? Ida is a tough opponent, you know. Hananuki asked, knowing the speedster is a part of the Ida-10 family group. I don't think I can. I know I can, Izuku said with conviction in his tone. He then went over to Monoma's direction before heading to the stage. Monoma, you brought your phone? Phone? Yeah, I had it with me. He fished out of his pocket, showing it to the green-haired teen. "Record my match, would you? You won't want to miss this." Izuku smiles before taking his leave as the blonde-haired kid wonders why. When Ida heard Deku's name come out of the intercom system, he was surprised by it, to say the least. Not only did he think that Deku was not supposed to fight, but even if by some miracle he did, he wouldn't win against him. Being born into the Ideten family, he always looked up to his brother and dreamed of following in their footsteps to become a hero, just like his brother, Ingenium. His brother always pictured himself as someone that everyone would look up to as a hero, and that's why Ida wanted to have that same admiration. He learned that in order to save people, you need to have a quirk to do so. Without it, all you are is nothing but a liability. That's how he saw Deku. Nothing but a liability. That's why he was on board with the plan, because he needs to open Deku's eyes that he can't compete in the same place as he is. Only the heroes can save people. He's the speedster clad in silver armor. Faster than a speeding locomotive. Give it up to Tenya Ida from Class A. Ida made his way to the stage hallway with pride brimming from him, while walking to the stage to meet with his opponent as he already stood waiting for him. Ida is more than ready to show him his place in society when something catches his eye: the lack of armament on the green-haired teen. What's the meaning of this? Ida went on to ask, wanting to know, just like Midnight, who's the referee of the match. Izuku arrived at the arena, missing his repulsor blaster like the one he used when battling Katsumi or even the leg booster. But instead, he came carrying his visor and holding a metallic stick in his right hand. Everyone in the student and teacher's booth, and even in the audience seats, is wondering what's he going to do with a stick against the brother of Ingenium. My blaster and booster were still being charged, so this is all I brought. Izuku shows the stick to the bespectacled boy. Are you admitting that you can't win against me? Because you just humiliated yourself and this institution with your action right now. Ida sternly replied, Now, are we going to spend our time chit-chatting, or we're going to do this? Izuku looks towards the speedster direction, waiting for it. Ida humorlessly chuckled. Don't make any excuse when you're losing. Before Midnight is about to start the match, Izuku cuts her off, and also tell Katsuki Bakugo and Shoka Todoroki to get ready straight away. 5 seconds is all it takes. If Midnight wasn't baffled before, she is now. Izuku just openly says that the match is going to end in a very quick manner. From the body language and facial expression of the speedster, he sees it in resulting of Midoriya's defeat. But from how Izuku looks, she can tell from years of experience that Izuku wasn't bluffing. 5 seconds to defeat Tenya Ida? Midnight thought, holding her whip above her head, before rapidly bringing it down. With a loud crack, the match had begun. The match is started. Ida revved up his quirk engine right from the beginning, heating up his engine quirk like a race car before the race started, so that when the signal started, all he needed to do was just let loose and dash forward using his special move. Recipro Burst. In the blink of an eye, Ida was across the ring directly in front of Deku, his right leg swinging back, ready to kick the green-haired kid out of the bounds. When suddenly his left foot slipped, and he fell extremely hard and extremely fast till he was tumbling down to the other side of the wall, almost reaching to where Deku came from. Ida fell into an upside-down position as he stared at the sight of the arena that's above his eyes from his vision, while trying to piece together what happened just now while being in a comical situation. Ida is out of bounds. Midoriya is the winner. Midnight announced after taking a brief second herself to recover. The arena was silent. Present Mike had not said a word. The crowd immediately went silent once again as they tried to piece together what they had just witnessed. The class president looked down in shock as he quickly got up to see how he got sent to the other side of the arena in a matter of seconds, just like that. He looked to the arena floor where Deku stood and saw a puddle of black liquid on the ground next to him, and also on his feet in the trail where he crashed. He put his finger on his foot and smelled it, and his eyes widened. Oil? From the bottom tip of his staff, there's a small canister that pours oil from it with a press of a button at Izuku's thumb while he was smirking coyly at him. He quickly recovered himself and shouted in Midnight's direction, demanding a rematch. This can't be allowed. It's cheating. As a fellow student of UA, I demand a rematch. No, can't do. The use of support items is not against the rule for support course students, and Midoriya didn't break a single rule just now. His win is valid. Midnight informed, shaking her head. But that's cheating. There's no way that his plea falls to deaf ears, as he could hear the sound of laughter from his rear. From the 1B booth, it was hard to miss the laughter coming from Minoma, who had his hand on the phone recording the whole event, just like Izuku suggested him. Haha, well, so much for winning the tournament, the copy quirk user said while making no attempt to tone down his cheers. Soon the rest of the audience follows Minoma's lead and begins to laugh at Ida's humiliating defeat just now. The sound of laughter and chuckling echoes through the stadium aiming at him. Ha ha ha. Flashes of cameras hurriedly snap over to Ida's falling position, followed by the sound of laughter ringing through the stadium like in a tunnel with echoes. All the audience from adolescents to the elderly who are present are laughing at his misstep. Booths filled with interns and scouts from Hero Agency are also present, and he even sees a couple of pro heroes from the Hero Billboard come to watch who are all trying to stiffen their laughs. Even the news channel camera is aiming its camera at his face as Ida suddenly realizes that this is live on television. Everyone in the country saw this. His friends and family saw the match. His neighborhood, the colleagues of his brother's agency, teachers, and even his brother saw it. With that, Izuku leaves the arena, and the crowd remaining mostly laughs out loud as he does so. Ida lifts himself off of the ground, tears welling in his eyes, and runs to the other side of the arena, as quick as he can, into the tunnel, where he breaks down and begins to cry in shame over what happened. But even as he escapes to the tunnel, the sound of the laughter continues to follow deep inside his head. Principal Nizu looked over from the teacher's booth over what happened at the match between Tenya Ida and Izuku Midoriya, with a perplexed and amusing look on his face. Whilst it isn't breaking against the rule, the way how he thought outside of the box is simply amazing in his book. But his winning also comes at a heavy price for Tenya Ida's reputation. The kid is breaking off the internet with his 5-second loss, and how he lost when he was slipping at the arena, as the rest of the society saw that UA along with the Ida-10 family reputation is cracking. Not to mention that the media is making fun of his falling, and it turns into a meme for their amusement, and there's nothing that they could do since the sports festival is a live tournament. Needless to say, Tenya Ida is facing an uphill battle for his future. But right now his attention shifted to Izuku Midoriya, as he started to see a different image of the boy, one that Tashinori wasn't drawing for him. The kid proves that he's indeed smart, both in making support items and strategic thinking. But the report from Aldera along with Tashinori's words speaks entirely two different stories. So what's the truth here? Principal, I think it's in our best interest to disqualify Izuku Midoriya from the tournament of his action with young Ida. Tashinori leans into the principal's seat, suggesting the idea. Care to elaborate? Majima responded, leaning back in his chair and looking down at the arena from the teacher's booth. Majima, he just humiliated one of the hero students, live on television with his action just now. His action just now is going to ruin Tenya Ida's future in the hero industry. Somebody needs to put a stop to this before anyone gets hurt or worse. You seem to be getting the kid right from the start, Tashinori? Majima asks accusingly. With how the kid proves to be a threat, I'm just preparing for the worst, that's all, Tashinori replied. For you or the kid? Majima asked. What's that supposed to be? Tashinori crossed his arms in his chest. You've been accusing Midoriya ever since Bakugu's gauntlet exploded, thinking he sabotaged it, but there's no concrete evidence that he was anywhere near it. Next, I heard that you tried to block the kid from entering the sports festival. And now you're here gunning the kid, trying to sabotage his future to save yours. Because the kid is indeed a saboteur, forget about this. I'll tell Aizawa and Midnight to disqualify him myself. Tashinori is about to get up and leave before he is being stopped. You will do no such thing. Up until that moment, Nizu had remained silent, simply listening to the conversations. But now he speaks up, moving off of his chair and approaching the center of the teacher's booth. Principal Nizu, be reasonable. Tashinori turned to the diminutive principal, fanning his arms out towards the rodent, I'm only looking out for the best interest of the festival and the safety of our students. I honestly fail to see the issue, Nizu stated calmly. Midoriya is a student at UA of the support. Of course, he has followed every guideline, every rule, every single constraint he had to adhere to, and he went beyond what anybody could have expected. Toshinori looked at the principal with a perplexed look, wondering why the sudden change of side, and continued to argue. But how he humiliated young Ida is simply unacceptable. Can't you see that it will ruin his life? If I had to disqualify Midoriya, then I have to overhaul the whole final event and start from the beginning. What? Why? Katsumi Bakugo ambushed Midoriya during the first event and nearly damaged his leg had the booster his leg isn't sturdy enough. If she had put more power into it, Izuku Midoriya's leg could have been damaged or worse. We had to amputate him live on television. Not to mention, the entire Todoroki team also crashed against Midoriya's team, who could also eliminate his entire team with a permanent injury to all 4 of them on the team. If I had to eliminate Izuku Midoriya, then we're going to have to disqualify the entire Todoroki team from the second event and Katsumi Bakugo from the first event, and we're going to have to restart the entire event with entirely different students that participate, and it wasn't fair for those who already won up to this point and losing their chance. But what makes me wonder is why the perpetrators are all coming from Class A. Is there something you want to tell me, Toshinori? Toshinori looked at the principal, not able to come up with an answer. Truth be told, Nizu seems to be having doubts about this whole matter with Izuku Midoriya, like something is filling up the gap with the case. Like what's the reason he stabbed Katsuki Bakugo? How come the school has no report of such an event taking place? Who covers the incident from the beginning? And why Izuku Midoriya seems had his sight on Class A right from the beginning. But right now, he's just going to continue to watch the match to see how it's going to go, while at the same time trying to uncover Midoriya's plan. The Class A stared down at the arena, in shock at Ida, who was running through the tunnel where he came in. They watched as his tall figure stomped back down to the tunnel, his footsteps echoing out as he approached the mouth of the dark hallway, running away from the sound of laughter aiming at him. Uraraka immediately got up, running to Recovery Girl's office to check on her friend. Everyone else simply stared in shock. Momo looked up at the Jumbotron, seeing the face of Izuku staring back at her. 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, Izuku had beaten Ida. Decisively. What has happened? Kaminari looked at the speaker, Mina, who stared down at the arena, her hands covering her mouth. She trembled slightly, the silence of the crowd deafening to the girl. I think Deku just won, Mina said, who was staring at the portrait of the boy in confusion. Pretty easily, actually. Katsuki looks up at the scoreboard, seeing as Deku's name moves forward to the next match. The crowd still laughs at Four Eyes' failure at his match, but his eyes are still glued to the name that's on it. Deku won. That worthless piece of trash is won and moving up to the next match. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw it, but he knew that his victory was nothing but a cheat to him. Deku didn't win with his strength like everyone else. He's using cheat and tricks to get what he wanted, just like how he tricked him into getting into trouble with Hobo and everyone else. Yet the rest of the audience sees that his victory is to be okay, which baffles him. Deku didn't even win with his quirk because of his lack of quirk, and yet they praised him for it. It's not fair and pathetic. His victory is just the same as his existence. Pathetic. Shoka Todoroki and Katsuki Bakugo, please make your way to the stage, the speaker announced. He got up from his seat and made his way forward into the arena, waiting for his match to get called up. Anger radiating from his face with each step he takes reminds him of the cold look he gets from Deku, like he was looking down on him. He entered the stage while looking at Icy Hot Sister as both of them were ready to square off right in the middle. He grits his teeth, looking far more pissed off than before as Shoka is looking at him weirdly. But to Katsuki, it's the same look Deku gave him whenever they come across in contact. They all looking down on him. All right, begin the match. Midnight announced. Right off the bat, Katsuki jumps in front of her and blasts himself forward with the dual-haired girl looking in surprise before she starts the match with a focused version of her special move straight away, like her brother did to Zero. Oh, right off the bat, Shoka Todoroki started with the same move as her brother just did. Is no one able to escape this move at all, folks? But Katsuki is more than capable of defending himself by destroying the ice with a flurry of quick explosions. Katsuki tunnels his way out of the mass of ice by using his explosions. The arena is shaking, and the ice glacier where Katsuki is trapped also starts to crack before he comes out while gritting his teeth in the frostbite and his usual angry self. That's not going to be enough to defeat me. You extras! Shoka runs at him, using her ice to slide over, and Katsuki uses an explosion to rush his opponent. Shoka reaches out to try and grab Katsuki, but he evades with an explosion and grabs onto Shoka's left side. Get lost, why don't you? Shoka got thrown out toward the edge of the arena with an explosion. Shoka swiftly recovers by creating and surfing an ice wave to avoid falling out of bounds and skates, gaining the attention of the audience. It looks like Shoka Todoroki is still in the game. Shoka took the chance to use her quirk and launched a wave of flame in his direction, but Katsuki propelled himself out of the way and threw a powerful explosion into her direction, but she created an ice wall in between to fend off against the attack. Die! Katsuki screamed as he launched himself across the arena and slammed his ignited fist where Icy Hot Sister stood while using her flame to lower her body temperature. Much to his annoyance, the coward let the flames in her hands fade out before moving out of the attack by forming an ice wall in front of Katsuki. Katsuki swung at her again, only for Shoka to block his attack with a wall of ice over and over again. He gave a loud growl as he launched himself at the dual-haired girl again. Stop hiding and fight me, Katsuki shouts over in rage. At the student's booth, everyone watches Katsuki's explosive onslaught against Shoka while wondering what with the sudden explosive rage like that. Is it just me, or is Katsuki acting more feral than usual? Kaminari went on to ask. I know. It's like he's pissed or something. Sato added. I don't know. Maybe he's just in a mood, that's all. I meant Shoka isn't weak, you know. He's giving his all, that's all. Kirishima replied, looking at the match. At the arena, Katsuki continued to give his all, firing one after the other, trying to break through Shoka's ice defense. She struggled to put up with it, seeing her opponent didn't even stop. Katsuki knows of their limit and how much ice and fire they can produce. Die already, the blonde yelled, unleashing a large explosion toward the dual-haired girl as he did so. His opponent quickly made a protective wall with her ice, barely being able to protect herself in time after having to catch up to her breath so many times. Shoka knows when it comes to her brother, she lacks the power to finish her opponent and focuses more on defense instead of offense. Unlike her brother, and Katsuki knows about this. All right, you want to play like that? Then try this on for size. The blonde screamed. Katsuki launched himself further into the air, ascending dozens of feet above the arena before redirecting his body to point right at his opponent and shoot forward like a missile. As he neared her, he began launching more explosions to pick up speed, angling his palms to add a rotational effect, as he also allowed gravity to impact his descent. Shoka did her best to set up a defense, but it was clear that she was at her limit and was having difficulty. Howitzer impact. The vortex of trapped oxygen that had collected around the blonde fueled the built-up attack as Katsuki unleashed everything he had at the unprepared girl. He gave her a maniacal smirk as he watched her eyes grow wide in shock right before she disappeared into the raging inferno of his explosion. The resulting attack covered more than 2/3 of the arena in a massively bright and deafening explosion that shook the whole stadium, covering the arena in a black smoke that would hide it from view before dissipating. When it was finally visible again, Katsuki stood hunched over, breathing heavily as he eagerly awaited the results of his attack. There was no way that Icy Hot Sister was still standing after that attack, and that meant he was going to face Deku's woman in the next match if she won her fight. The blonde was practically salivating like a wild dog at the thought. Shoka was seen outside the ring, lying on her side with her back to the blonde, unconscious and with many small burns on her body. Shoka Todoroki is out of bounds. Katsuki Bakugo is the winner. Midnight exclaimed. And there you have it, folks. Bakugu is moving up to the next match. Present Mike said from the announcer's box. Katsuki walked out from the arena and made his way into the tunnel before he looked at the Jumbotron hanging on top of his head, looking at the time it takes to beat Icy Hot Sister. For minutes, 37 seconds. He clicked his tongue in annoyance, thinking to himself that he could have gotten a lot faster had his opponent just stayed down, accepting her loss when facing against him. But he could tell that's a good amount of time for him as well. While he was entering the tunnel, a few of the audience looked toward the blonde boy's victory and saw on the screen that he was moving up to the next match. While some were amazed by his performance, others had a different opinion. Man, that kid doesn't know how to hold back, even when against a girl. But she's Endeavor's daughter. There's no way that the kid can hold back. By the way, did you see how he fought? It looks pretty savage if you ask me. And he's almost like doesn't have any control over his quirk. But from how his quirk works, it's got to cause permanent damage, right? Maybe. I don't know anything about explosives. He must have been a pretty hard-headed kid. Katsuki walks in the hallway looking back to his victory. He was walking towards the long hall as he grinned over his victory, thinking that finally he proved to himself and those losers back there that he was the best. He continued to walk, but along the way, he could hear a few of the audience in the visitor hallway talking about his match and other topics. Out of curiosity, he decided to lean in and listen to their conversation. Did you see the last match? Can't believe that Endeavor's daughter is lost. She put up a fight, but it's such a shame that Bakugu Kid is an idiot. I know, right? Does he really need to go that hard against her? Sounds like overkill if you ask me. He held his anger behind the wall, listening to how they bad-mouthing him for his recent victory. What do those extras know about winning anyway? They probably never achieved anything memorable in their pathetic lives anyway. That's why they came into this tournament. To see a winner while none of them can do it. He's about to turn away and leave the hallway, remembering his warning to Aizawa-sensei for his latest outburst when he hears another topic in hand. Hey, you still reading that article? Yeah, the one with the anonymous source mentioning that student. You meant that student K? Katsuki listens to their conversation as it grows even deeper, discussing the article where his initial being mentioned. Can't believe someone like that is on the loose. I know, right? I told my daughter to be careful at school if she saw anyone dangerous. The things that he did, he must have done it recently. That article was recently posted, maybe the so-called student K is still on school. I bet he's in junior high now. No, it's obvious that it's high school grade. They mentioned that he's been doing it for 10 years. My brother is on the police force. He told me that they're starting an investigation of the said student, and they're going to hunt this psychopath down. They better, otherwise how else are we going to feel safe with that guy on the street? Behind the wall, Katsuki's face grows in frustration and anger upon hearing how Deku's stupid article is being mentioned around. He can't help but feel angry about it. That article has basically turned everything in his life into the mess he's stepping on right now. He can't exactly erase it since it's already gone viral right now. And even if he did, it's not like everyone would forget about it. They would continue talking about it for who knows when. That's why he needs to dominate the sports festival. If he could come victorious in this match, then it would bring their attention away from Deku's article. Everyone would be focused on Katsuki Bakugu and not some stupid fanfiction article. They would see it that Katsuki Bakugu is destined to be number one. The next match is about to start between Idru Kirishima versus Itsuka Kendo, as both contestants are ready to duke it out right in the middle of the arena. Both fighters were staring down at each other, knowing that it was a contest of brute force since both of them were utilizing their hand-to-hand combat, with Kendo using her martial arts skills and Kirishima in his hand-to-hand brawler style. All right, time for our next match to begin. Present Mike announced, from Class A, we had the red-haired hardcore boy with chivalrous spirit, Idru Kirishima, and his opponent. She's a hero student with black belt in karate. The big sister of Class B, Itsuka Kendo. It was hard for Kendo to miss the exceptionally loud howling coming from the 1B section of the stadium. Admittedly, it felt good having her classmates cheering her on. The orange-haired teen stood up and shook the nervousness out of her body. She was ready, and she was confident that she would win this match. Looking at her opponent, She recognized him from the second event, where he joined with Bakugo, and knowing how the red-haired kid always stuck to Bakugo close at all times, she knew that he must have been one of them who hurt Midoriya. Kirishima stared at his opponent ready for the match, and also recognized her. Whenever he saw Deku hanging out with her, "Kendo, let's have a manly match." "Sorry, Kirishima, but I don't see a man anywhere other than a coward or a bully," Kendo replied, looking at the red-haired in the eye. Kirishima turned to look at her directly before scowling. "You just don't get what we're doing." "Oh, I think I know what you were doing." Kendo took her stance, not wanting to have another conversation. Let the last match of the second round begin. Midnight announced with a wave of her whip. Right off the bat, Kendo charged ahead while enlarging her fist toward Kirishima's direction in a swift manner. The hardened quirk user barely had any time to use his quirk and took a defensive stance. Having her right fist didn't connect to her opponent, she switched up to her left, but the hardened boy simply switched up his defense from one side to another. Oh, right from the start, Kendo from Class B is launching a barrage of attack against Kirishima. But Kirishima didn't budge in or from the looks of it. Kirishima didn't take any damage at all. At the Class B booth, the rest of the class watched as their class president battled in a one-sided match since none of her attacks could penetrate Kirishima's defense. "F it, she's in a tough spot." Setsuna cursed, looking at the match that was going on. "What do you mean?" Shiozaki looks to her fellow green-haired girl. Right from the match paired up, Kendo is facing some tough battle with either Kirishima or Tetsu that one. Both of their quirks are on a defensive state, but Kirishima's defense is more ragged, covered with hard and sharp edges all around, unlike Tetsu's smooth layered of steel. So each punch she delivered, she only hurting herself? Owaze looked in surprise along with the rest of the class. Setsuna nodded. "Yeah, but why does she keep punching? That's the question." "She's testing on him." The class turned to Izuku, who just joined their booth, with his hand in his pocket. "Midoriya, Kendo didn't just randomly throw her punch. She's looking for a gap that she can exploit. But isn't that pointless? While Kendo studies martial arts, it won't work against someone as sturdy as Kirishima." "True, but that depends on the martial art itself," Izuku replied, which left the class wondering what it meant. Meanwhile, Kendo continued to rapidly punch Kirishima, but the red-haired boy just took the hit and let her continue. His plan is just to wait for her to run out of stamina and win the match in one attack, just like how Bakubro suggested him. He knew that his hardening quirk was far suited to go up against her, and there was no way that she could break against him. But most of all, he wanted to see the look of desperation on Deku's face when he saw his friends get beaten up and fighting a losing battle. Kendo then took a step back and retreated with bruises all over her hand from punching him. "It's no use. You're simply a bad matchup against me." Kirishima grins over to Kendo, knowing her attack can't do damage. "No." Kendo shakes her head. "I'm just looking for something, that's all. But I just find it, that's all." "Huh, what are you talking about?" Kendo then took a stance on a stage right in front of Kirishima, with the red-haired, not knowing what she was planning on, thinking that her fist couldn't penetrate his hardening, but decided to give her a free shot before he wrapped this up. She then delivered a straight punch, shot from the waist towards Kirishima. The blow was so powerful that Kirishima had to hold his mouth from vomiting. The rest of the audience looked in shock, seeing this was the first time Kirishima had taken damage, let alone something this fatal. It's different if it's Kyokushin karate. Izuku looked down below the stage, with pride in his eyes. "Kyokushin?" Hananuki went on to ask, taking the question out of everyone's mind. "Kirishima is done," Izuku claimed. At first, Kirishima felt nothing more than the familiar dull thump of an impact as her fist met his hardened chest. But then he feels it, pain beyond anything he had ever felt. Kirishima immediately gasps out, acknowledging a new snapping sound at his chest. He stumbles back, falling onto the ground, trying and failing to catch his breath. Kirishima looked down at his chest, immediately noticing that on the right side of his chest, there was severe cracking in his hardened skin. At the epicenter of the cracking was a circular dent, bending inward. He knew immediately the impact had broken a few ribs, and he let go of his quirk, letting himself catch his breath, though noticing an acute stinging of his broken ribs as his lung expanded, leading to them digging into his bruised flesh. Kirishima took a deep, ragged breath, not being able to pay attention to the thumping of footsteps approaching him until the sun was blotted out by the figure standing above him. He immediately noticed the silence of the crowd, but was too busy staring up at his opponent in bewilderment. Kirishima dropped himself to the ground before hearing the word from Midnight Sensei. Ijiru Kirishima is out cold. Itsuka Kendo is the winner. That was the last thing Kirishima heard before the darkness covered his vision in black. Katsuki stared at the stadium with a bewildered look in his eyes, watching Shitty Hair just lose to Deku's woman like that. He knew that Shitty Hair is nothing compared to him. His quirk is nothing more but a sturdy punching bag in his eyes. But deep down he knew just how tough Shitty Hair is, and he was not the type that could lose to some weakling like Man Hands in the first place. She's a weakling from his point of view. She with a weak quirk. That's why she was put in AB listed class, unlike him, who's in the A listed class. The UA Sports Festival always ended in one way, and one way only. Katsuki grinned, looking up at the board. At his next target. Now he could show what he was capable of when he wasn't being dragged down by all the useless extras around him. Now he could win this and prove that he was the next #1 hero. He looked over at Deku again, his grin becoming malicious. And he could finally show that freak his place. Izuku is staring at the screen where the order of the match is about to take place. He looked at his name right next to Shoto, showing that their match was about to take place in less than 10 minutes. He clutches his hand, tightly looking at the match that's about to take place. Out in anger and excitement, he's been wanting to take the match right from the start. Unlike before, this match is a completely different level than the previous two. Katsumi is someone he understood quite well, since her quirk is based on her brother's similar nature, and he understood full well how to counteract the quirk with his invention. Ida, as well, is someone he understood quite well since he's been watching his brother on patrol on television, and observing his quirk is the same, so he had his way to deal with him. But Shoto is a different animal. Being born as the #2 hero prodigal son, Shoto possessed both attributes of fire and ice as his quirk, and proven to be the strongest when it comes to raw quirk power. As far as he is concerned, if he's talking about the quirk alone, it almost has zero weakness since both quirks complement each other in sync. But Izuku knows that it takes more than a quirk to become strong, and he's living proof of that. Grabbing his gauntlet, he walks into the hallway headed to where his match is about to take place. Whilst walking down the hallway, he walked past against the flame hero, Endeavor, stopping him in his tracks. You, boy. Izuku was shocked to see the #2 hero and Shoto's father, Endeavor, leaning against the wall down the right of the hall. His height and glare alone were intimidating enough for him, but the flames made it worse. It also didn't help him know Endeavor's domestic past. It's Midoriya, right? Endeavor asked, his brow raised. I watched your match just now. Your quirk, you don't have one. So I've been told. Izuku almost tiredly spoke, getting a little tired of hearing that phrase. You rely on gadgets and toys to reach this far, but compared to my son, you pose no threat against him. But try to push his limits, give him the fight of his life, and get him to use his flames. Do you understand? Izuku didn't give his answer and just stood still where he came from, and Endeavor walked by having his message already being delivered. Oh, I will write. This time, it was Endeavor who held his track and looked at the boy in front of him. His eyes looked curious, wondering what was with the tone. It somehow had another meaning to it. Your son, he would be showing his all right, and I would be there to bring him down to his knee when he's at his best, at the peak where you created him. You think you had what it takes to defeat my son? Endeavor asked skeptically. Defeat? You misunderstood Endeavor. Izuku said, pausing for a moment. I'm not going to defeat him. I'm going to break him. Out in anger, Endeavor was already nose to nose with Izuku in an instant. The mix of rage and heat coming from the #2 hero was singeing Izuku's hair off. But Izuku stared down at him like a tiger looking at a lion in a wild jungle, not backing down with his words. Watch yourself, Brad. That mouth of yours won't help you in your fight. The walking flamethrower grunted out. Oh, I beg to differ. You should stay and watch the match. Izuku relayed his message to the number 2 hero as he began to walk past away from him. Your son might need a shoulder to lean on once this match is over. Shoto sat on the bench in the waiting room, staring at the closed door. He didn't move a muscle, instead simply staring at nothing and trying to quell his growing anger. The heterochromatic boy shook his head, focusing his mind on his next fight. It wouldn't do to get distracted right now, not when he needed to keep his attention on his opponent. He still looked at the results of the second event, where he almost lost to Deku's group, and deep inside his mind, he couldn't forget the humiliation he was feeling at that time. To know that he almost lost to the likes of him is simply unexplainable. He's more powerful than him, has better influence than him, is more well-known than him, and he's got the reputation to back it up to accomplish his dream to be a hero. And yet for some reason, Deku is still trying to cling his way up, trying to compete with him like he's on the same level as he is now. Deku, in every fight he has been in so far, has dominated. From the absolute flooring he gave Katsumi to the 5-second quick victory he gave to Ida, Deku had won every fight without giving an inch. Shoto noted that while his invention is impressive, Deku won't be able to climb further while using toys in his opinion. Will the competitors please take to the field? Present Mick's blaring voice sounded off, and Shoto took a deep breath before standing and walking out of the waiting room, turning to face the glow of the tunnel. Shoto walked confidently out, entering the light of the arena to the cheers of the crowd. Taking his place, he waits for his opponent to appear opposite him. Sure enough, the footsteps began to echo out of the opposite tunnel, and Shoto saw Deku standing in the starting square, opposite him, and Shoto took a ready stance. Izuku takes a similar stance, lowering his form and bending his knees. The dual-haired kid took a look at the opponent in front of him, and he was wearing the gauntlet and boot he used when fighting Katsumi. At least he saw that he was showing some seriousness, unlike when battling against Ida. I suggested that you give up right now. I don't want to be judged by the crowd for putting a quirkless kid into the hospital. Shoto replied in a cold tone. Izuku scoffs, keeping his composure. You think that you're going to win? I'm not delusional such as you. I know my place in this tournament. Shoto claimed. To his surprise, Izuku let out a small chuckle. We'll see. At the student's booth of Class A, Izumi sits with Momo together looking at the match that's about to take place, with Izuku fighting against Shoto on their side, alone away from others at the back end. From her standing point, Shoto should be the clear winner of the match, but somehow at the back of their mind, Izuku would pull through and win it. You think he's going to win? Momo went on to ask. Shoto is the obvious favorite right now, but I think that Izuku is going to surprise us somehow. I can tell. At their seat, Kirishima, Kaminari, Sato, Mineta, and Mina were running forward to their booth looking all exhausted and trying to catch their breath. Did you find anything? Uraraka asked the group. No, nada. Kaminari shakes his head to the side. Katsuki spats. Sato took his seat next to Shiro. If he has it, then he must have carried it to the stadium with him. Or he took it to safekeeping, Kirishima added. What are you guys talking about? Izumi asked, not knowing what they were talking about. Evidence that Deku is talking about. Bakubro told us that he had something against us. We figure he must have kept it in his locker. Kirishima told her. You went to his locker? Momo looked aghast at their action. So he kept it closed to him then. At least Icy Hot can screw him bad until the evidence is destroyed. Katsuki concluded, biting his fingertip in frustration. But won't it be too risky? In case it got damaged during the tournament. Maybe he gave it to his friends. Like Kendo perhaps. No, it's got to be to Hatsum. The class silently discussed it, thinking who or where would he keep this evidence that he was talking about. They need to find it first before something bad is going to happen that could jeopardize their future. You won't find it. They all turned their attention to Momo, who just spoke those words. What do you mean? You won't find it. Momo said Izuku didn't keep the evidence at his locker or give it for safekeeping to anyone. He always held it close to him, so it's with him then. Then Icy Hot can just screw him and the evidence at the same time. Momo scoffs, it won't matter. Because his evidence is indestructible. Indestructible? What does that mean? You just have to see it yourself then. Midnight raised her whip, and with a crack, the match had begun. The semifinal of today's match between Shoto Todoroki versus Izuku Midoriya is starting now. And in a similar fashion to Shoto's other matches, it opened with a massive glacier rocketing out towards Izuku. Shoto immediately feels a shallow drop in his body temperature, but he puts more power into it, trying to show how capable he is, even without his father's fire. After a few moments, the glacier was complete, and Midnight sighed, ready to call the match, but then they heard it. A shallow but sharp voice. Bang! Then the glacier where Izuku is supposed to be began to crack. Spiderweb cracks emanated from a point of origin, and Shoto could do nothing but stare in shock as the glacier cracked further and further, until the entire structure shattered, and there, standing in a circle of ice fragments, Izuku, rolling his shoulders and, notably, unfrozen. Get ready, Shoto, because today is the day you'll realize how little you were in this world. Izuku took a step forward, standing on the ice. He got out. He got out, folks. Present Mike shouted with great enthusiasm. Ladies and gentlemen, Izuku Midoriya just got himself out from that huge chunk of ice completely unharmed. Is there anything that Izuku Midoriya can't do at this stage of game? Shoto was briefly stunned by the display, staring at his opponent as the particles of ice fell around him. Unfortunately for the dual-haired boy, Izuku capitalized on his visible shock, raising his left arm and hitting Todoroki with a repulsor blast. Shoto is squarely in the chest, knocking him down and throwing him slightly back, though the scarred boy manages to gather himself enough to catch himself before he sails out of the arena. Shoto's gaze settled on his opponent in just enough time to see him fire another blast at him, and he dodged to the side, sending another wave of ice at the quirkless boy. He watches as the quirkless kid in front of him focuses his blaster into one point and fires it straight to the ice, and the glacier shatters in its infancy. Shoto, however, does not relent and sends another glacier right after. He won't be able to do the same thing as before. It's over. Shoto feels his body shivering slightly, but his senses are still sharp. However, he watches as his opponent reaches to his waist for a small canister, puts the canister into his gauntlet, and fires it. The blast, once again, stalls his glacier before it has the chance to make its way to Deku, and the ice is losing its strength when headed towards Deku. Is that all you can do? Izuku challenged him, asking for more. Shoto then fires another set of glaciers towards Deku's direction, hoping that it would finally put the quirkless freak in his place and encase him in ice for his arrogance. But once again his glacier gets destroyed by his blaster, and not before it could make its way to entrap him. Shoto stumbled back, but when he raised himself, he was met with an open palm in front of his face, the center of the hand glowing with a blue light. This was all the warning he received before a blast of energy hit Shoto directly in the chest, causing him to fly backward, his brain bouncing around in his skull. Shoto hits the ground, but quickly rolls to the side. Shoto quickly rose to his feet, sending a wave of ice at Deku, hoping to catch the boy off guard, but somehow the quirkless boy destroyed the ice with ease and barely with any effort using the blaster on his palm. Shoto grits his teeth, frustration settling in, and that frustration is only amplified as the quirkless kid extends his arms wide as if gesturing to the world around them. You're not even going to try and use your fire? Izuku yelled out with his eyes dilated. Shoto, where's your famous flame you inherited from Endeavor? Huh? Show me some heat. Shoto roared out with rage, sending a wave of ice to cover the ground. The ice began to creep up Izuku's legs and boots, but with a hiss, he watched as his boot began to heat up and fly him away. Izuku lifted his right arm, firing his blaster over in Shoto's direction while he was hovering in the air, but the dual-haired kid used his ice to block against the attack, but not long before the ice was losing its strength and shattering away. What's going on? How does Shoto seem to be the one in trouble? It doesn't make any sense. Shoto is freaking strong. To be losing like this. They all seem to be lost in words, not understanding how this is happening to begin with. It's not just that. Look at the arena, Izumi replied, crossing her hand to her chest. And just as Izumi explains, The arena is covered in one-sided filled with ice from Shoto's court from where Shoto is standing, and the other is dry with only small chunks of ice in where Izuku is standing. It's something weird for the eyes of the audience, and even for the teachers as they don't know what is happening. One side of the arena is covered in ice. The other is completely dry as a desert. Shoto Todoroki seems to be in trouble right now. But what's with the situation on the field and one-sided here, folks? Aizawa stared from the booth in confusion, just as his friend next to him. The field itself is bizarre. There's only one side covered in ice while the other is filled with it. Todoroki ice should be able to cover the whole arena, but somehow Midoriya is free from ice. At the teacher's booth, the rest of the teachers are also left in question as none of them can explain this phenomenon that's taking place in the stadium. Principal, how is this happening? How come Todoroki's ice isn't making its way towards Midoriya? Vlad King asked the question. They all knew just how powerful Todoroki was when it came to quirk strength, but they didn't expect that Todoroki was struggling like this in the first place. I have no idea as well, Kin. Nizu admitted while trying to come up with some explanation for this weird activity that was on the scene. There has to be a trick. Young Midoriya must have cheated or done something to Todoroki's quirk. Tashinori claimed. And how'd he do that? Power Loader chimes in. I don't know, but he must have done something, Tashinori replied, looking somehow enraged by the situation. We can't just disqualify someone based on a hunch, but I have to admit that Midoriya has done something to Todoroki, Nizu replied, not taking his eyes off the match. The rest of the staff also shared the same mind as the audience, and even the students who were watching wondering with one simple question rings their brain like an alarm bell. What did Midoriya do to Todoroki? Shoto breath is starting to hyperventilate with the fact that he's starting to get hypothermia from overusing his ice, but he still refuses to use his fire with the situation with his father yet right now. The quirkless runt he saw as inferior is proving to be the only obstacle to reach for the final. What's the matter, Shoto? Izuku asked, though Shoto noted the taunting tone. You getting cold? Shoto starts to shiver from the cold he experienced from overusing his quirk, but also from the fact that he felt whenever he went on a train with his father for a one-on-one sparring session when he was little. Fear. Shoto starts to shake pretty badly right now, looking at the towering figure of Deku, who doesn't seem to be affected by his ice at all, and starts to look at the quirkless freak for some sort of explanation. Deku himself didn't wear any protective suit other than the UA gym uniform he's wearing now. There's only the gauntlet he's wearing and the shoes to help him fly with only one pair, because Katsumi has destroyed one during the first event. The only thing left is just the visor he's wearing, but that can't protect him from the cold at all. There has to be a trick to it. An explanation as to why his ice can't make it towards Deku and is able to get shattered like that. Shoto tried to move, but the extreme cold had paralyzed him. His body had stopped shivering, and he felt his skin growing dangerously numb. He couldn't even look up, his vision had clouded, and his breathing had grown shallow. This was what the cold truly felt like. I can't lose here. Shoto tries to will his body to release another blast of cold, but even the thought of worsening his condition almost causes him to throw up. His body began to feel dangerously warm, the extreme cold giving way to an almost pleasant numbness. A dangerous sign that frostbite was inching closer and closer to irreparable. I can't move, but this can't be the end. He hears the uneven slamming of feet as his opponent limps towards him, ever closer to the dual-haired boy's defeat. Shoto sees his situation and knows it's hopeless. My ice isn't enough. Shoto feels his resolve crumble under the sheer weight of the cold, and then feels his left side begin to warm as small bursts of fire erupt from his left side. Fine, Deku. You force my hand now. I'll burn you to a crisp. Shoto is confused by the feeling of freedom that the flames dancing across his body give him. He feels the fire emanate from his chest, filling his previously frostbitten heart with a nearly forgotten warmth of the inferno within. However, his attention was focused solely on the quirkless boy in front of him, who seemed to be waiting for him. Izuku smiles in a challenging way, almost like waiting for the dual-haired boy to use his fire right away. like he's begging him to hit him with the stream of fire headed his way. You want to get burned? Then go ahead. Shoto grits his teeth with the full intention of wiping the smirk off his face. Shoto capitalized on this by reaching his left hand outward, launching a massive stream of fire forward toward Izuku's direction. Izuku seemed to snap out of it and crossed his hand in front of his face in an X manner, seeing no option but to face the blaze head-on. Izuku Midoriya has taken the full hit on the flames. Todoroki just unleash a wave of fire towards him. Ladies and gentlemen, is Izuku Midoriya gonna make it? When the fire met the quirkless boy, at first he felt the blaze, but felt mostly unharmed. Then he felt an incredible burning on his left shoulder, followed by blistering pain rushing down his chest. Finally, after the fire had died, the rest of the audience could see Izuku stand with second-degree burns all over his body from hand to his entire arm. But something caught their eyes when the charred clothes of him are showing his body. One of the crowd yelped in shock. His back is covered in many variations of wounds, from bruises to stabbing wounds, to burn marks, ice burns, and even something resembling a claw mark. Not just his back, but his front also covered in the same wound as the one in his back, but much worse. But there's one wound that stands out above everything else. A starburst wound is located in his chest, specifically where his heart is located, along with a miniature burn scar at his chest area. As the shocking news was revealed on the screen, an audible gasp rippled through the stunned audience. At the same time, the audience pulled out their phones, and a news reporter aimed their cameras toward where Izuku's body was, and even the Jumbotron in the stadium was covering the graphic image of his wound. At the Class A booth, it was anything but surprising and more of a chilling sensation, as everyone got a striking cold shoulder with a fearful expression on their face as they looked at the Deku's back colored with many wounds from their past action. Katsuki stared with wide eyes, his pupils dilated in fear while sitting at his seat, feeling like someone just placed a block of ice into his back, finally understanding what Deku was talking about. He's not secretly kept pieces of evidence against him. He is the evidence. Shoto, who stood in the arena, stared with wide eyes, realizing what he'd done just now, staring at the wounded body of the quirkless freak that he put in his place multiple times over the last 10 years. And now, there was like a painting in a studio. Those wounds they inflicted are left for them to see. Water started to drip from the top of his head, and he stared at the sky, clouded, signing that it was about to rain heavily for no apparent reason. Sorry for the sudden rain, folks. We'll close the top of the dome straight away. Just as signaled, the dome starts to rotate and close down, covering the whole stadium from rain and lightning just in case. But something caught their attention in the arena, where Izuku is standing, as something is flickering in a bright blue color while the dome is closing. Wait, what's that on the arena? One of the audience points to the arena. As the dome closes from the top, it creates a shadow that covers the whole arena. And something is flickering in the arena, just like the audience is talking. It's covering the side of the arena, where Izuku is standing like fire, but instead of bright red, orange like Shoto, this one it's in blue-white flame. The arena. The whole arena is covered in blue flame, and all of a sudden, it's ethanol flame. Aizawa spoke in realization. That's why Todoroki ice can't touch the part of Midoriya's side. With those flickering around, his ice is instantly nullified, and Todoroki dousing the whole arena in flame only ignites the ethanol even further. But how come we didn't see it before? Ethanol flame burns visible on the naked eye, but when in the dark, then it started to visible. Shoto looked around feeling like he was scared, like getting a series of deja vu when he was training in his father's dojo, staring at the flame hero in fear over the last 10 years like he's something that resembles more of a monster instead of a hero everyone acknowledges. Suddenly, the sound of rustling came from his front, followed by the footstep sound of Deku walking forward, with each step feeling like an earthquake inside of his mindset. "G, get away from me!" Shoto roared out in fear, sending a wave of ice towards him, but the flame heat was so intense that it burned right through his ice and melted it, turning it into a puddle of water, and it only made the fire spread further than before. "Get up, Shoto! Get up and fight!" Shoto shrieked in fear with each step his opponent made toward him. The blue flame is lining up in his way, forming a pathway to his direction as Shoto sees the image of Deku is beginning to look just like his father. "Get away from me, you freak!" Shoto shouted in desperation while crawling backward away from him. His face is showing a fearful expression, trying to get himself away and making a run. The flame highlighted the scars all over his body nicely for him to see, and paired with a judgmental look from the whole arena, wondering who was responsible for it. "I didn't raise a failure, Shoto. You'll be the one who'll defeat All Might." He didn't say it, but he knew that it was them who were responsible for it. He also took part in it, but the judgmental look in their eyes shows if Shoto indeed had something to do with it, that he alone had a hand in it. "Leave me alone. Please. Please stop. I'm begging you." All of a sudden, Shoto felt like he was in the training dojo with his father, like he was still 5 years old, with hatred and a cold look, followed by fire surrounding him like when he was practicing. "Your mother gave birth to you for a reason. You're my masterpiece, Shoto. You'll be the one who surpasses All Might." He felt himself trapped in that training room all over again, enduring the abuse and harsh training that his father delivered. Training in full hours non-stop while panting his breath and draining his energy, all to fulfill his empty ambition and hand its responsibility to his offspring. Shoto began to beg on his knee while crying with his head touching the concrete floor, seeing Deku looking more similar to his father, remembering the abuse he got during training all those years, and he took out his frustration to Deku at the time. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, I beg you. I'm sorry." Shoto continued to lower his head, begging for him to be spared at the very least. But Izuku continued to close into him in silence as Shoto grew even more shaking than before. "I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Please don't hurt me." Izuku looks down from where he is standing in cold gaze as Shoto is turned into a sniffle mess while begging for him, saying sorry all over again, not knowing if it was because Shoto saw him as himself or Endeavor. "Please, I give up. I surrender. So please, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't hurt me, please." As soon as those words left Shoto's mouth, no one in the arena spoke at all, either mesmerized by the dancing blue flame on the arena or the fact that Izuku Midoriya just defeated Endeavor's son, or Shoto Todoroki, was turning into a sobbing mess resembling a 4-year-old. Endeavor, who's decided to watch his son match per the suggestion of Izuku, watches as his masterpiece. The weapon he created to surpass All Might has now been broken into the unfixable mess he is right now. Normally, he would be gritting his teeth in rage for his loss, or shouting in rage, telling him to get up and fight, or even lashing out at the situation his masterpiece is in now for embarrassing him. But this time he didn't feel any anger at all, but stunned out of shock at seeing his son broken by crying and looking all broken. His son, who's always acting all cold and distant, harboring a silent hatred towards him, is now all crying while muttering and begging to stop, remembering his training days. There was a moment where everything went silent before Midnight called out, "Shoto Todoroki is surrender. Izuku Midoriya is the winner." So, this was the end of part 3 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.